79% of millionaires are self-made, and in this video I'm going to share the 5 habits that helped me build my multi-million pound business. So let's get to it. Habit 1. Focus on assets over liabilities. One of my top 10 favourite books on this subject is Rich Dad Poor Dad. If you haven't read it, I'd highly recommend you do, but in short, it does a good job of illustrating the difference between assets and liabilities. The rich focus on buying assets that create passive income to then spend and invest, whereas the middle class and below would generally focus on taking on liabilities, taking on costs that they rely on a salary to then pay for. A good question for you to answer at home is, if you stopped working today, how long could you continue to pay the bills before you ran out of money? If the answer is not forever, then that means you rely on a salary to live and you've not built enough assets that passively produce your income to pay your liabilities, to pay your bills month on month. So for me personally, I've always focused on building assets. So in my early 20s, rather than getting a fancy car, buying a big house, I focused on building up about £2 million of property investments before I then bought my first home to live in. At that point, the passive income from my investments paid for my home as well as all my living expenses. That was the same for when I got my Tesla eventually. I built up the assets that now pay for my Tesla. This links perfectly to habit number 2, consistent saving and investing. The way I focused on building assets is, rather than increasing my expenses as my income from my businesses increased, I focused on keeping my living expenses fixed and investing the rest to build my assets. You should aim to only increase your living expenses when your passive income is able to replace your salary and any increases in expenses that you want. It can be so tempting as you make more money to then spend more money to get the bigger house, the bigger, better car, but ultimately this is a trap that quite literally keeps you in the rat race. Anything beyond what I need, I invest, and I only increase my living costs as my passive income increases. If you're lost as to how to invest in assets to build your wealth, then that links to habit 3, lifelong learning. The knowledge I have now around how I invest in property, for example, is many times greater than the knowledge I had when I started over a decade ago, because I focus on always investing in my lifelong learning. The fact you're watching this now is a good sign. It means you are seeking to expand your knowledge, and that is something you should never stop doing. My hacks for this is I block 25-minute chunks through the day to focus on reading. I always focus on reading around personal development, business, people I admire, and some days I may only read for one 25-minute block, but most days I aim for 2 or 3 25-minute chunks. Even me reading 25 minutes a day for a year totals just over 152 hours of reading. It takes on average 7 hours to read a book. That allows me to read, with that time, almost 22 books a year. If I'm reading 20 to 30 books a year on marketing, investing, self-development, and you're not, that gives me an incredible advantage over you over years and decades of doing that. I believe it is my desire to keep learning that fits nicely to my 4th habit. But before I move on to habit 4, if you found this video useful, I'd personally really appreciate you liking and subscribing. 80% of people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, and my goal is to try and get that down to 70%. It helps me and the channel more than you know, and means more and more people like you will find my videos. It means I can then invest more and more time to creating free content for you at home. Thank you. Habit number 4 is developing entrepreneurial spirit. I knew if I wanted to be financially successful, I would have to build a business, and this is what always fueled my obsession with lifelong learning. In a recent survey of 233 millionaires aimed to learn about their habits, found 51% of them were entrepreneurs. A significant portion of millionaires are entrepreneurs or business owners. Now, there is nothing wrong with building a career, working for someone else. As you can see, a lot of people develop their wealth that way too. But whichever path you take, building an entrepreneurial spirit will help you spot the opportunities of that business to start or that business to join that you believe will grow quickly and therefore allow you to grow quickly with. Finally, habit number 5, I've always focused on building multiple streams of income. As we grow up, we've probably all heard about not putting all your eggs in one basket, but for the majority, even a big portion of the wealthy, that is what they do. I've never wanted all my income to be attached to one business or one asset class. I've always focused on building multiple streams of income, and as I build one successful stream, I then focus on the next. You want your income to be a table with many legs. If one leg gets knocked out, the table still stays upright. If right now your way of life is reliant on one or even two different sources, then you need to be thinking about other ways you can invest to diversify your income. I love the quote by Brian Tracy. I found that luck is quite predictable. If you want more luck, take more chances. Be more active, show up more often. See you in the next video.